The snow crunched under Emily Harper's boots as she climbed the steps to her family's sprawling colonial home in Burlington, Vermont. On Christmas Eve, 2024. The air was sharp, biting at her knuckles as she clutched a bottle of Napa Valley Cabernet, its red ribbon fluttering like a surrender flag. She'd spent years as the Harper family's unofficial lifeline, paying overdue bills, funding fake emergencies, and swallowing their barbs with a smile. Tonight, she hoped, would be different, but the moment she crossed the threshold, a chill deeper than the December frost told her she was wrong. This wasn't a holiday gathering. It was an ambush. Inside, the house glowed with curated perfection, twinkling lights, a towering spruce dripping with ornaments, and the scent of roasted chestnuts mingling with cedar. Emily's mother, Diane, called out from the kitchen, her voice syrupy with false warmth. "Em's here. Everyone." The words landed like a stage cue, not a welcome. Her older sister, Lauren, flashed a smile sharp enough to cut glass, her crimson lipstick gleaming under the chandelier. "Early as always," Lauren said, adjusting her cashmere scarf. "Must be nice. No kids, no real responsibilities." Emily forced a laugh, setting the wine on the mahogany dining table. "Better early than overdramatic," she quipped, but the room stayed silent. For years, Emily had been the family's fixer. She'd wired thousands to cover her father Richard's emergency dental work, only to find out it was cosmetic. She'd paid for her niece Chloe's private school tuition when her younger sister, Megan, swore the scholarship fell through. She'd even funded Lauren's so-called therapy retreats in Sedona, which turned out to be spa weekends with a side of pseudoscience. Every time, Emily gave without question, believing their sob stories, draining her savings while her own dreams, a small bookstore, a trip to Italy, faded into the background. They called her the rock of the family. But rocks don't bleed. Emily did, quietly, every time they took and never gave back. Dinner was a masterclass in pretense. The table groaned under glazed ham, truffled mashed potatoes, and cranberry relish, each dish a testament to Lauren's obsession with appearances. Small talk buzzed like a dying fluorescent bulb, weather, Chloe's ballet recital, anything but Emily's life. No one mentioned her recent promotion to senior editor at a Burlington publishing house, a milestone she'd clawed her way to after years of late nights. They didn't ask how she was. They didn't need to. They were waiting. Then it came. Lauren rose, wineglass in hand, her emerald earrings catching the firelight. "Before we slice the pie," she said, her voice smooth as a prosecutor's, "let's get real." Emily's stomach twisted. Lauren's eyes swept the table, commanding attention like a queen addressing her court. "We've talked, and we've decided Emily's no longer part of this family." The words hit like a slap, sharp and surreal. Emily blinked, her mind scrambling for a misheard syllable, a punchline, but Diane nodded, buttering her roll with surgical precision. "It was bound to happen," she said, as if discussing a weather forecast. Megan stared at her plate, her fork trembling. Richard, slouched in his armchair, muttered about unhealthy dynamics, without meeting Emily's gaze. Lauren's husband, Ethan, tapped his glass lightly, a silent second to the motion. Only Chloe, oblivious, giggled, thinking it was a game. Emily's world tilted. She wasn't just hurt, she was erased. The family she'd propped up for years had voted her out like a reality show contestant. Their faces calm, almost relieved. She could have crumbled. She could have begged. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a manila folder, thick with the weight of truth. The sound it made hitting the table, a dull, deliberate thud, silenced the room. "What's this?" Lauren asked, her smirk faltering. Emily leaned back, her voice steady but cold as the Vermont winter. "Since we're being honest, I came prepared." Lauren snatched the folder, flipping through pages with manicured nails, her face drained of color. Bank statements, wire transfer receipts, emails begging for just this once loans, text messages promising repayment that never came. And then, page 27, a hotel invoice from Charleston, South Carolina, 2 nights, 1 suite, signed by Lauren Harper and a woman named Claire Monroe. Not Ethan. The air turned electric. Lauren slammed the folder shut. Her voice a hiss. You're unhinged. Emily. Spying on me? Emily didn't flinch. Not spying. Documenting. Big difference. Ethan grabbed the folder, his jaw tightening as he read. Claire Monroe? He asked. His voice low. Dangerous. Lauren stammered. It's not what you think, but the lie crumbled before it formed. Diane stood, her voice shrill. How dare you weaponize your help? Emily met her mother's eyes. Unflinching. You called it help. I was your ATM. Your therapist. Your punching bag. The room erupted. Ethan's voice cut through, sharp and wounded. You told me it was a work trip. Lauren's excuses dissolved into deflections. But no one was listening. Chloe asked, Are we still playing? As Megan whispered. Stop. Just stop. Richard shifted uncomfortably, his silence louder than any words. Emily didn't wait for their verdict. She stood, grabbed her coat, and walked to the door. No tears, no pleas, just the click of the lock behind her. As final as a guillotine. Outside, the snow fell harder, swallowing her footprints as she crossed the lawn. Lauren's voice chased her, shrill and desperate. You think you're better than us? This proves you're obsessed. Inside, the folder hit a wall. Pages scattering like ash. Ethan's voice followed, steady but raw. Who the hell is Claire? Emily paused, just long enough to see his silhouette in the dining room window. The folder clutched in his hand. She didn't need to stay for the fallout. Lauren's perfect world was unraveling. And for once, Emily wasn't cleaning up the mess. She made it to her car. The engines hummed, drowning out the chaos behind her. But the Harpers weren't done. Her phone buzzed with a voicemail from Richard's lawyer. A man named Paul Grayson. Ms. Harper, your father insists you're still listed as power of attorney for the family trust. He'd like to discuss reinstatement. Emily's laugh was bitter, cutting through the dark. Tell him I signed off months ago, she said when she called back. And even if I hadn't, I'm done. She hung up, her hands steady on the wheel. Emily drove, not home, but to Lake Champlain, a place her father once took her as a child. Back when family meant something softer. The water was a sheet of black glass under the moon. Unmoving, like her resolve. She'd spent years believing she was saving them, her parents, her sisters, their lies. Now, she saw it clearly. They didn't need her. They needed what she gave. And she'd given too much. Back in Burlington, the Harper house was a war zone. Ethan's questions about Claire grew louder. Lauren's denials weaker. Diane tried to mediate, but her platitudes fell flat. Megan sat silent, guilt etching lines on her face. The family that had so casually discarded Emily was fracturing under the weight of their own secrets. They'd try to pull her back. Emily knew, another call. Another crisis. Another plea for her to fix it. But she was no longer their lifeline. She was her own. As the lake stretched before her, Emily whispered into the night. I'm not your fixer anymore. The words felt like a vow, carved into the stillness. She didn't know what came next. But for the first time, it didn't scare her. The Harpers had built their world on her sacrifices. Now, they'd have to live in the ruins. The snow swirled around Emily Harper's car as she drove away from her family's Burlington home. The Christmas Eve betrayal still burning in her chest. She didn't head to her apartment. Instead, her tires found the familiar gravel path to Lake Champlain, a frozen sanctuary where she'd once escaped childhood chaos. The lake stretched before her, a mirror of moonlight and ice, whispering the truth she'd long buried. Her family didn't love her, they needed her utility. Sitting in the driver's seat, engine off, Emily vowed to stop being their savior. She wasn't running, she was reclaiming herself. Days later, Emily leased a loft in downtown Burlington, a bare space with exposed brick and no echoes of her family's demands. She purged relics of her past, a red sweater from her mother. Diane, it's love always, tag now a cruel irony, went to a women's shelter. She updated her emergency contacts, striking every Harper name and writing her own. Bank accounts were severed, passwords changed, and her father's trust fund ties legally dissolved. Each step felt like shedding skin. Painful but freeing. She wasn't just moving on, she was rewriting her story. But her sister Lauren wasn't done. A smear campaign ignited. Subtle at first, then vicious. Old friends texted Emily, their messages dripping with faux concern. Lauren says you're struggling. Isolating. You okay? A Facebook post by a former coworker, Tara, went viral in their small circle. Some people lash out, cut off family, and play victim while causing pain. Mental health matters. No names. But the comments tagged Emily, twisting an old text, "I'm exhausted by them," into proof of instability. Lauren had weaponized pity, painting Emily as unhinged. Emily's instinct was to fight back, to post her folder of receipts online. Instead, she called her lawyer. Within hours, Lauren received a cease and desist letter, attached with screenshots of her defamatory messages and the Charleston hotel bill exposing her affair. One more lie, the letter warned, and we sue. Emily's response wasn't emotional, it was surgical. A line in the sand drawn with steel. Lauren's silence was deafening. By January, Emily stood on her loft's balcony, the Green Mountains looming under a bruised sky. She sipped coffee, not wine, and felt the weight of her new life, not lighter, but hers. The Harpers' calls still came, pleas for money, veiled threats, but she blocked each one. She wasn't their fixer anymore. She was Emily, and that was enough. The January wind howled through Burlington, Vermont, rattling the windows of Emily Harper's new loft. It had been 3 weeks since she walked away from her family's Christmas Eve ambush. 3 weeks since she burned the bridges they'd built on her sacrifices. Her phone, once a constant buzz of demands, was quiet now. Blocked numbers ensured that. But the silence wasn't empty. It was alive with possibility. A canvas for the life Emily was building. Piece by deliberate piece. Yet, even as she carved out her freedom, the Harpers' shadow lingered, their desperation clawing at her resolve. What Emily didn't expect was the flicker of light from unexpected allies. Nor the final act of closure that would set her truly free. One gray afternoon, as Emily sorted through a stack of manuscripts for her publishing job, a knock shattered the quiet. 3 sharp raps, then nothing. She froze, her pulse quickening. Through the peephole, she saw her cousin Rachel, a duffel bag slung over her shoulder, her face streaked with tears and smudged mascara. Emily hesitated. Rachel had clapped at Lauren's cruel vote, but the exhaustion in her cousin's eyes mirrored her own. She opened the door. "I'm sorry," Rachel whispered, her voice cracking as she stepped inside. "I can't stay with them anymore. It's poison." Emily locked the door, gesturing to the couch. Rachel collapsed, her tote spilling onto the floor, clothes, a toothbrush, a crumpled photo of her and Emily as kids, laughing on a tire swing. "They're falling apart," Rachel said. "And they're blaming you." She pulled a USB drive from her pocket, her hands trembling. "This is everything. Emails, texts. Lauren and Megan's plans to ruin you. I took it before I left." Emily plugged the drive into her laptop. The screen filled with venom. Lauren's messages to mutual friends, spinning tales of Emily's mental breakdown. Megan's emails plotting to guilt Emily back into the family trust. Even Diane's notes to Rachel, demanding she choose loyalty or lose her place in the family. One thread stood out. A group chat where Lauren instructed Rachel to lie about Emily's stability to their old college friends. "She's dangerous," Lauren wrote. "We're protecting her." Rachel had refused. And Lauren's response was chilling. "Then you're out, too." "I didn't know how deep it went," Rachel said, her voice barely audible. "Lauren cornered me after I texted you. Said I was betraying blood." Diane backed her up, said silence was the only way to keep the family whole. Emily's throat tightened. She'd felt that control, that fear, her whole life. "You're safe here," she said, her voice soft but firm. Rachel nodded, pulling a blanket around herself. And for the first time in weeks, Emily felt a spark of connection, not obligation, but choice. That night, another crack appeared in the Harpers' facade. Emily's phone pinged with a message from Ethan, Lauren's husband, whose silence at Christmas had stung as much as Lauren's words. "I owe you an apology," he wrote. "I saw what Lauren did to you for years, taking, lying, twisting, and I stayed quiet. I thought it kept the peace. It didn't. It made me complicit. A second message followed. You weren't crazy. You were alone. I'm sorry. Emily stared at the screen, stunned. Ethan, the stoic observer, had always been a neutral shadow in their family's chaos. Now, he was breaking ranks. He wasn't just apologizing. Ethan revealed he'd refused Lauren's demand to co-sign a public statement calling Emily unstable. Instead, he'd hired a lawyer and filed for divorce, citing the Charleston hotel bill and Lauren's lies. I'm done being her prop, he wrote. You showed me what courage looks like. Emily's fingers hovered over the keyboard, tempted to reply, but she locked her phone instead. His words were a gift, not a debt. She'd carry them, but she wouldn't owe him a response. The Harpers' final attempt came in a letter, slipped into Emily's mailbox like a ghost from her past. No return address, just her name in Diane's loopy cursive. Emily stood on her balcony, the envelope unopened, the green mountains looming under a steel-gray sky. She could have tossed it, but something, curiosity, closure, made her slit it open. 3 pages spilled out, each word a calculated pull at her heartstrings. We miss you every day. Diane wrote. No hint of apology. Your father's lungs are failing. Chloe cries for you. We're behind on the mortgage, please. Just this once, and we'll never ask again. The last line was underlined twice. A desperate flourish. Emily read it once, then again, her breath steady. She didn't feel anger, only clarity. This wasn't love, it was manipulation. Dressed in nostalgia, she carried the letter to her kitchen, placed it in an old ceramic bowl, and struck a match. The paper curled, blackening, the ink bleeding into flame. Smoke rose, thin and fleeting, vanishing into the winter air. I'm not angry, she whispered. I'm done. The ashes settled, and with them, the last tether to her old life. Emily's new life took shape in quiet, deliberate acts. She volunteered to walk Chloe to school when Rachel picked up extra shifts at the hospital. The 6-year-old's hand was warm in hers, her skips uneven as she chattered about snowmen and ballet. At the school gate, Chloe looked up, her eyes wide. Will you come to my birthday? Emily crouched, smiling. Only if you invite me. Chloe nodded, then darted off, her backpack bouncing. Emily watched her go, the moment light but profound. She wasn't fixing anymore, she was choosing. Her loft became a haven, not just for her but for Rachel, who stayed on the pull-out couch, slowly rebuilding her own life. They didn't talk much about the Harpers, but when they did, it was with a shared understanding, a language of survival. One night, over takeout pizza, Rachel said, I thought I'd miss them. I don't. I miss who I thought they were. Emily nodded, her chest loosening. Me too. The healing wasn't loud. It was in the silence of her balcony at dawn, the mountains sharp against the sky. It was in the manuscripts she edited, her pen carving stories into something true. It was in the absence of guilt, the weight she'd carried for years now scattered like the ashes of Diane's letter. Emily wasn't just free, she was whole. The Harpers' voices faded, their blocked numbers piling up like junk mail. But Emily's story didn't end with their silence. It began with her own voice, clear and unapologetic. She'd been their rock, their ATM, their scapegoat. Now, she was her own anchor, her own home. And as the Vermont winter softened into spring, Emily knew one truth above all. Strength isn't enduring pain, it's choosing yourself. No apologies needed. This isn't just my story, it's for anyone who's ever felt trapped by family, by duty, by love that demands too much. Have you ever had to walk away to find peace? Share your thoughts below, or just drop your city. I read every comment. If this hit home, hit subscribe. Your next chapter's waiting, and you're not alone in writing it.